I heard the crack before I registered the scream, and when I spun around, my boy was already falling. Twilight draped Wellington Ridge in lavender hush, the kind of late summer evening that normally softened every sharp edge of our manicured subdivision. Porch lights were just beginning to wink on. Grass sprinklers hissed in rhythmic arcs. Somewhere down Birchview Lane, children's laughter rose and faded like a passing breeze. It should have been peaceful. Instead, that crack, bone, against knuckle, shattered the quiet. My 14-year-old son, Marcus, was halfway up the sidewalk in his power wheelchair. He was born with spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. His legs never quite got the signals they needed, but his mind was quick and curious and stubbornly independent. Fetching the evening paper from the communal kiosk had become his nightly ritual. He liked the breeze on his cheeks, liked proving to himself, and I suspect to the neighborhood busybodies, that freedom came in more than one set of footsteps. This night, I'd stepped onto our porch to call him back in, but two matte black SUVs idled beside the HOA's miniature security hut at the entrance of the cul-de-sac. Their doors bore gold shield decals that read Wellington Ridge Protective Services, a flashy name the Homeowners Association Board deployed last spring when they voted to upgrade enforcement. Residents joked that we now had our own police force, though no one could say whether the men inside actually held badges of any legal kind. The SUVs rolled forward, slow and predatory, until they flanked Marcus. A uniformed man stepped out, square, jaw buzz-cut, heavy flashlight hanging from his belt like a medieval mace. He barked, "Curfew's 8:30, kid. HOA code 6B. Move along or I'll move you." Marcus, startled, checked the joystick display. 8:47 p.m. He opened his mouth to explain that the curfew didn't start until 10. The man's fist shot out. Wham! It landed under Marcus's right ribcage with a sound like a dropped pumpkin. The wheelchair jolted. Air whooshed from Marcus's lungs. The joystick jerked sideways. He cried out, half shriek, half gasp, and tilted, seatbelt creaking. Paper fluttered from his lap onto the asphalt. I ran. No shoes, no plan, just a father's sprint fueled by white-hot fear. Somewhere behind me, the front door banged open, and Alejandro El Toro Reyes exploded onto the porch. Alejandro is 55, built like a compact freight train, and coached me back in my college amateur boxing days. He'd flown in for a surprise visit that evening. We'd been catching up over empanadas when the cracks split the twilight. The old fighter instincts never left him. The second SUV door swung wide. A second uniformed man emerged, baton in hand. Marcus's wheelchair, wheels spun against the curb as he tried to right himself. The first man, let's call him Harris. We'd learn his name later. Cocked his arm again. "Touch him," Alejandro growled, advancing. "And you'll need an ambulance before he does." Harris's partner, Lawson, snorted. "Back off, old man. HOA enforcement." He flashed, a plastic shield that looked suspiciously fresh from a novelty website. I reached Marcus, slid between him and the assailants. My hands shook as I checked his side. Already a deep bruise bloomed beneath his t-shirt. Marcus's brown eyes were wide, not with tears, but with disbelief. Someone in a uniform had hurt him because he dared fetch a newspaper. Harris shoved me, interfering with an officer. His breath reeked of mint gum masking stale coffee. I staggered but planted myself again. Alejandro stepped to my shoulder, fists rising into a perfect peekaboo guard, chin tucked, elbows tight. "Officer," he said quietly, "show me your post certificate. Show me jurisdiction. Show me anything that says you're allowed to punch a disabled child." Harris swung, a telegraphed haymaker born of arrogance, not training. Alejandro slipped 6 inches. Left, and the fist cut empty air. Crack! His counter-left hook detonated on Harris's jaw. The sound was different this time. Gloveless knuckles on stubbled bone, a dry branch snapping. Harris's legs puddled. He pinwheeled into Lawson. Lawson's baton rose. Alejandro's torso tucked. He drove a shovel hook into Lawson's liver. Breath fled Lawson's body in a guttural oof, baton clattering. One more straight right to the sternum and Lawson folded, retching bile and curses onto the sidewalk. Neighbors peeked from doorways, phones raised. Porch lights blinked on in a jittery constellation. Somewhere a dog barked, then fell silent. Harris crawled toward the SUV, gold decal peeling at the edge, the shield printed on a magnetic sheet. He fumbled the door, half collapsed inside. Lawson limped after him. Engines revved, rubber burned. The two black SUVs fishtailed down Birchview, taillights bleeding red across manicured lawns. Silence rushed in, broken only by Marcus's ragged breathing. I knelt. "Son, can you take a deep breath?" He tried. Pain rippled across his face. "Okay, don't," I whispered, throat tight. "Alejandro, call 911. Marcus's hand found mine, squeezed. He didn't cry. He rarely did, but wet streaks on his cheeks glimmered in the street lamp. Rage churned inside me, hot as molten iron. Whoever those men were, the HOA had given them power. And now my kids' ribs might be broken because of it. Sirens wailed in the distance. Alejandro stood guard, shoulders still squared, eyes following the path the SUVs had taken. Without turning, he said, "Tonight we play defense. Tomorrow we go on the attack." As the first police cruiser swung into the cul-de-sac, blue strobes painting the scene, I realized this tranquil subdivision had just declared war on the wrong family, and on a boxing coach who still hit like a freight train. Blue-white ceiling lights flickered over the ER bay as nurses transferred Marcus from the ambulance gurney to a trauma bed. His wheelchair, scuffed tire, bent joystick guard, sat in a corner like a wounded animal. A flurry of latex-gloved hands cut away his T-shirt. Purple bruises blossomed across his ribs. One formed the crude outline of a fist. Dr. Samantha Kim, a compact whirlwind in navy scrubs, ordered a chest CT and rib films. She asked Marcus to rate his pain. He said 7 and tried to grin. When she pressed gently around the bruise, the grin crumpled. Rachel arrived 10 minutes later, clutching her purse strap so hard her knuckles blanched. She kissed Marcus's forehead, whispered, "Mom's here," then turned blazing eyes on me. "What happened?" "Fake HOA cops," I said. Her jaw trembled. A single tear slipped free, then she straightened, predator calm. "We pressed charges," she said. "No settlements, no quiet deals." Alejandro paced at the bay entrance, arms folded. Every time a uniformed staffer passed, he checked badge numbers, protective, vigilant. The adrenaline that had fueled his punches now simmered into a readiness to strike again if needed. CT results returned. 2 non-displaced rib fractures, pulmonary contusions, no pneumothorax. Marcus needed pain control and monitoring, but he would heal. Relief fluttered in my chest, quickly followed by rage. Officer Devon Price took our formal statement beside the bed. Marcus recounted the curfew shout, the punch, the license. Plate's first 3 digits. Price's pen scratched faster. "These guys claim any police authority?" Price asked. "They flashed fake shields," I said. "Called themselves enforcement." Price nodded. "I'll flag it to Sheriff Rivera's task force. He's already sniffing around these HOA goons." While Marcus dozed under mild opioids, Rachel and I commandeered a vacant family consult room. I opened my laptop, Alejandro leaning over my shoulder like a corner coach. We drafted an email to the entire HOA board. Subject, emergency board meeting request, assault on disabled minor by HOA security tonight, 8:47 p.m. My son, Marcus Evans, was punched by a Wellington Ridge Protective Services guard. We attached phone photos of the bruises, ER reports, and Officer Price's incident number, CC'd the county commissioner, local news tip lines, and a disability rights attorney friend. Before hitting send, Rachel added one line. "If the board does not suspend this contract immediately, we will ask a judge to do it for you." Alejandro whistled low. "Body blow to the board," he said. "Good. The sent ping still echoed when replies cascaded in. One trustee, Priya Patel, wrote, "I'm horrified. Calling an emergency session now." President Lorraine Bishop, however, answered, "At 1:09 a.m. Let's avoid inflaming rumors. Our security acted within policy to address after-hours trespass. We will review facts before knee-jerk reactions." Alejandro snorted. "Knee-jerk? She hasn't felt my knee yet." By noon next day, local Channel 6 parked a van by the clubhouse. Rachel wheeled Marcus in, hospital discharge papers tucked in her tote, just as a tide of residents flooded the foyer. A few wore hand-drawn stickers, "Justice for Marcus" inside. The oak-paneled meeting hall, Bishop sat at a dais with 4 board members. Her pearl necklace glittered, her smile did not. A hired attorney, grey-templed and crisp, occupied a seat usually reserved for the HOA treasurer. A silent signal they expected war. Priya Patel opened. "We have one item, security force conduct." She invited me to speak. I placed an enlargement of Marcus's rib X-ray on an easel. Collective gasps rippled. I recounted the timeline. The punch, the fleeing SUVs, hospital, bendings. Alejandro described the assault in measured detail, finishing with, "I used proportionate force to stop a continuing felony battery on a disabled minor." He eyed Bishop. "You're lucky my restraint is better than your contractors." Residents murmured approval. Bishop cleared her throat. "Our contract stipulates guards enforce curfew and safety." "There is no 8:30 curfew," Rachel cut. In holding up printed bylaws, the attorney interjected, "We don't concede liability." The guards believed they were carrying out policy. "We urge calm until investigation concludes." A neighbor stood. "My doorbell camera filmed them speeding away. Want to see calm? Watch this." She held up her phone. A muffled punch and Marcus's cry played over tinny speakers. Angry whispers surged. Priya banged a gavel. "I move to suspend the security contract effective immediately, pending licensing verification." The vote, 3 yes, 1 abstain. Bishop Lone, no. Motion passed. Applause burst. Bishop's pearls rattled against the microphone as she leaned in, voice icy. "Noted. Meeting adjourned." She swept from the room amid boos. Outside, Channel 6's camera lights snapped on. Reporters thrust mics at Bishop. She hustled to a waiting SUV. Alejandro, meanwhile, spoke calmly on camera. "Protective authority comes with responsibility." Wellington Ridge's guards had neither. That evening, Sheriff Miguel Rivera invited us to headquarters. He laid aerial photos, motel receipts, and body cam stills across a conference table. "We executed a search warrant for Guardian Lifestyle, the shell behind Wellington Ridge Protective Services," he said. "Recovered fake shields, rental, agreements, cash ledgers. Same crew is tied to 2 prior assaults in Meadowbrook Estates." He slid a mugshot of Harris across, swollen jaw, courtesy of Alejandro. "Booked on aggravated battery. Partner Lawson, too. We're adding impersonation of an officer, conspiracy, and hate crime enhancement for assaulting a disabled minor." Rachel exhaled shakily. I squeezed her hand. Rivera wasn't done. "County prosecutors want to hold the HOA civilly responsible. You willing to testify their board ignored licensing warnings?" "Yes," we said in unison. Alejandro grinned. "Coach, Reyes as eyewitness at your service." Rivera nodded. "Good. We'll make sure these fakes never wear a badge, real or magnetic, again." 3 days after the emergency board vote, Wellington Ridge's private Facebook group, normally a gossip haven about lawn edging and pool hours, detonated. An anonymous account named HOA Whistle posted screenshots of internal emails labeled confidential. Timestamps showed they'd been traded among President Lorraine Bishop, Treasurer Walt Dunham, and the security contractor months earlier. Bishop, April 5th, 9:18 p.m. "Guardian can be more persuasive than county sheriffs. Parents whining about ADA ramps. I'm done. Tell your guys to encourage compliance." Dunham, April 6th, 7:12 a.m. "Understood. They'll do a visible show of force." No paper trail. Another thread, dated just 2 weeks before Marcus's assault, chilled me to the bone. Contractor GH will start curfew sweeps at 8:30 for maximum deterrence. Teens are easy. Wheelchair kid too. He's always cruising after dusk. My phone pinged non-stop as neighbors forwarded the leaks. Rachel read the lines aloud, voice shaking between fury and disbelief. Priya Patel called an emergency Zoom meeting. 120 residents logged in. Faces filled screens, some tear-stained, some livid, all asking the same question. How deep does this go? Within hours, Channel 6, Channel 9, and 2 national outlets camped outside the HOA office. The leaks had elevated Marcus's case from local scandal to a statewide civil rights story. Hashtags, Rahesh Wellington leaks and Dadesh HOA corruption hit Twitter's regional trending list. An investigative reporter from the Daily Sentinel, Maya Kwan, cornered me on our driveway. "Microphone live?" she asked. "Mr. Evans, these emails suggest the board targeted your son specifically. Does this change your pursuit of justice?" "It doesn't change our pursuit," I answered. "It proves why it's necessary." They called my child easy. They weaponized a disability. That's a hate crime. Alejandro, polishing the gym's old heavy bag on the porch, chimed in. "And hate swings wild, Maya. But justice? Justice lands clean." Pressure built. On a humid Thursday evening, Bishop attempted damage control with a live-streamed town hall. Viewers peaked at 800, half the HOA membership, and who knows how many reporters. She appeared behind the clubhouse podium, pearl necklace gone, shoulders squared. "I take full responsibility for hiring errors," she began. "I was misled by Guardian Lifestyle's credentials. Any suggestion I condoned violence against a minor is false." She sidestepped questions about the leaked curfew emails, calling them out of context. Comments flew in faster than moderators could delete. "Out of context? You threatened a wheelchair kid." "Step down, Lorraine. Where's the paper trail you promised to hide?" Bishop's screen froze. The stream cut. 10 minutes later, a single-sentence resignation email hit homeowners' inboxes. She cited health reasons. Walt Dunham resigned next. By sunrise, 3 of 5 board seats were empty. Priya, now acting president, released a statement. "We will cooperate with law enforcement, support Marcus Evans, and rebuild trust through transparency." In pre-trial discovery, our civil attorney, Shannon Ortiz, obtained the board's Slack archive. One message from Dunham, time-stamped 6 hours after Marcus was punched. "Harris says wheelchair kid's ribs cracked good. Less roving after dark now, LOL." Judge Clarice Gomez, presiding over the civil suit, read the line aloud in chambers. Her gavel's sharp rap echoed off marble. "Counsel, prepare your punitive damages arguments. This crosses into egregious malice." Even amid depositions and reporters, life progressed in the small cadences of healing. Alejandro's adaptive boxing class met 3 afternoons a week in his refurbished garage gym. Marcus, ribs still taped but cleared for light activity, practiced shadow jabs with custom-weighted gloves strapped to his chair's armrests. Each exhale, psh-psh, etched confidence deeper into his posture. One Thursday, a new student wheeled in. Daniela, 12, spina bifida, shy eyes. She said she'd watched Marcus on the news and wanted to learn the punch that makes bullies quit. Marcus smiled, demonstrated El Toro's peekaboo guard. The two circled, giggling. For the first time since that brutal night, laughter replaced the memory of cracking ribs. Sheriff Rivera's investigation widened. Guardian Lifestyle's owner, Gregory Holm, the alias from motel receipts, was arrested in Arizona, hiding cash in a storage unit. A county grand jury indicted him on racketeering, fraud, and solicitation to commit aggravated assault. Rivera phoned me personally. "We've got text records." Holm ordered Harris to rough up non-compliant residents to send a message, verbatim. The DA upgraded charges against Harris and Lawson to aggravated battery, causing serious bodily injury with hate crime enhancement, doubling potential sentences. Our attorney Shannon met us nightly, rehearsing direct and cross-examinations. Marcus practiced telling the jury how the fist felt. It was like a hammer hitting inside my chest. He sometimes paused, blinking tears. Shannon taught him grounding techniques. Look at a fixed point. Breathe in 4s. Remember he survived. Bedtime, Rachel worried aloud. What if the defense claims Alejandro used excessive force? A jury might be swayed. Alejandro heard her from the hallway. He entered, gentle but firm. Self-defense of a minor is codified. I'll testify to proportional response. He placed his old Golden Gloves trophy on Marcus's dresser. Skill is control, hee-ho. The jury will see that. April's first Monday dawned steel gray, appropriate for a fight inside concrete walls. The state of Midvale versus Gerald Harris and Thomas Lawson opened in Division 12. Judge Marisol Vega presiding. Reporters packed the gallery. Deputies lined walls to keep order. A single ADA-compliant space beside the witness rail allowed Marcus to sit front row, flanked by Rachel and me. Prosecutor Angela Serrano addressed the jury first. You will see doorbell video, a disabled teen struck with a closed fist. You will hear texts ordering guards to rough up residents, especially the wheelchair kid. You will learn these defendants wore fake badges to terrorize neighbors, and you will return guilty verdicts. Serrano's voice never cracked. Righteous fire warmed every syllable. Defense counsel tried the soft pedal. My clients were misled by their employer into believing they had authority. Mr. Harris panicked when the boy's wheelchair jolted toward him. A few jurors frowned. Marcus shook his head slowly. Day 2, Serrano cued the main exhibit. The courtroom lights dimmed. A projector flickered. My neighbor's doorbell cam filled the screen. Marcus rolling past, headlights flaring. Harris exiting the SUV, barking curfew. And the blow. Gasps, though most had seen it on newscasts. Witnessing in silence was different. Juror number 4 covered her mouth. Then Alejandro's silhouette entered frame. The air crackled as his left hook detonated. Harris buckled. Lawson's baton raised, then the liver shot. In real time, it lasted 8 seconds. In memory, a lifetime. Lights brightened. Serrano let the hush linger. Marcus wheeled to the witness stand on day 3. Serrano guided gently. Why were you outside? Getting the paper like every night, Marcus said. He described the fist. It felt like my bones snapped inward. He detailed hospital. Tubes, missing soccer practices, nightmares. The courtroom absorbed every tremor in his voice. Cross-examination tried blame shifting. You often race that chair? Attorney Beswick asked. Marcus lifted his chin. I drive it how anyone walks. Fast, that's not a crime. Murmurs of approval rippled. Alejandro testified next. He explained his 30 years boxing background, defensive tactics, the ethics of minimal force. When I saw a grown man hit a disabled child, I used the quickest, safest strikes to end the threat without lethal damage. He demonstrated hand. Placement. Judge Vega allowed it for clarity. Beswick sneered. So you enjoyed knocking them out? Alejandro met his stare. Enjoy? No. But I'd do it again to protect any child, even yours. The jury leaned closer. Not hostility, just unwavering principle. Serrano's digital forensics expert unveiled texts recovered from Harris's phone. Kid in wheelchair out late again. Boss says crack down. Make sure the message sticks. Parents need to fear, Lawson replied with a thumbs-up emoji. With each ping on the courtroom speakers, defense shoulders sagged. Serrano. Violence against the vulnerable is the purest form of cowardice. These defendants weren't confused. They were hired muscle, paid to intimidate. Hold them accountable. Beswick pleaded for mercy. They lacked training, were manipulated by their employer, but empathy evaporated in the stale air. Jury out less than 3 hours. 4-person stood, voice steady. We find the defendants guilty of aggravated battery of a disabled minor, criminal impersonation, and conspiracy. At the sentencing hearing a month later, Marcus addressed the court. He'd practiced with Shannon and Alejandro, voice now resonant. I forgive you, he told Harris and Lawson, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. He described new physical therapy goals, boxing mitt drills with El Toro. Judge Vega delivered Gerald Harris, 14 years state prison, plunge 5 years post-release supervision. Thomas Lawson, 11 years, plunge 5 years supervision, restitution totaling 820s, who drew zero jointly to cover lifelong therapy and adaptive sports costs. A hush followed, then the gavel. Justice, stamped and sealed. 2 weeks later, our civil case against the HOA opened. With Bishop and Dunham already resigned, the association's insurer pushed settlement. Shannon countered with leaked emails, encouraged compliance, wheelchair kid, LOL. The adjusters' faces drained. They settled for $2.1 million, medical trust for Marcus, seed money for Alejandro's adaptive boxing nonprofit, and a community access fund to retrofit sidewalks. A consent decree required Wellington Ridge to ban private security uniforms resembling law enforcement. Submit any future patrol contracts to county vetting and resident vote. Install curb cuts, tactile paving, better streetlights. All ADA-compliant media dubbed it the Marcus Reforms. County supervisors, pressured by constituents, passed the Private Security Transparency Act. Every HOA security contractor must register, undergo background checks, carry body cams, and display non-police insignia. Fines of $10,000 per violation. 3 other subdivisions immediately dissolved similar cop programs. At a press conference, Sheriff Rivera praised the act. We welcome community partnerships, but legitimacy matters. Real badges come with accountability. Alejandro's garage gym had grown into Punchback Community Center. Donations from the settlement and hundreds of small checks inspired by Marcus's televised testimony. The refurbished warehouse boasted wheelchair-accessible heavy bag rigs, seated spa platforms, even a custom ring with ramp access. Grand opening day, Marcus cut the ribbon. Kids in chairs, on crutches, with prosthetic limbs cheered. Alejandro handed Marcus a pair of crimson gloves. First round's yours, champ. They touched mitts. Cameras flashed, not for tragedy, but triumph. As Marcus jabbed air, laughter, ringing, I realized the fist that once shattered bone had forged something indestructible, a community committed to shielding its most vulnerable. Fists up, not in hatred, but in unyielding protection. May sunlight pours through the tall windows of Punchback Community Center, tracing warm stripes across the ring ropes and the rows of accessible heavy bags that sway like silent sentinels. On one of the low platforms, Marcus wheels to center, gloves balanced on his lap. His ribs have knit solid bone. The bruises faded long ago, but the memory of that blow still rides beneath his skin. Today, though, it isn't fear he carries, only purpose. He raises his fists as Alejandro leans over with an encouraging nod. Jab, cross, slip, the coach calls. Leather pops against focus mitts. Marcus's chair rocks slightly with each pivot. Sweat beads on his brow, but his eyes shine. Around them, a chorus of cheers rises from half a dozen kids, some in custom wheelchairs, others using forearm crutches, who wait their turn beneath new banners that read, "Strength has no standard form." Rachel stands beside me near the ropes, phone lifted to capture the moment. A year ago, she wept beneath hospital fluorescence. Now her smile could light a stadium. Even local reporter Maya Kwan looks misty-eyed as she frames the shot for a follow-up piece titled Punching Back 1. Neighborhoods rise from violence to inclusion. Outside, Wellington Ridge has changed too. The curbs at every intersection now slope gently, painted in crisp ADA blue. Speed humps slow the traffic that once menaced kids on bikes and kids in chairs alike. Solar streetlights stand sentry, installed with funds from the civil settlement. Where the fake security SUV once lurked, the neighborhood now hosts a weekly farmers market, Priya Patel's idea to draw residents from porches into conversations that had never happened when fear patrolled the lanes. The new HOA board replaced procedural opacity with open-air meetings. Every contract, from landscaping to genuine licensed night patrols, streams live online. When the Private Security Transparency Act took effect county-wide, Wellington Ridge volunteered as the pilot site for the body camera program. Deputies report there hasn't been a single complaint of overreach in 6 months, yet progress didn't come without scars. Gerald Harris and Thomas Lawson sit in adjacent cells at Fort Loring Correctional, serving sentences that mark them in the Department of Corrections ledger as perpetrators of a hate crime enhancement. Last winter, Harris requested restorative justice mediation. Marcus considered, then declined, for now. Maybe one day, he told me, but first I want to finish healing on my terms. His choice, his autonomy, something no fist will ever steal from him again. For Alejandro, the center has become a second career. He rises at dawn, logs donations, tweaks training modules so each athlete, amputee, autistic teen, stroke survivor, finds an adaptive path to footwork and rhythm. Corporations sponsor gloves branded with the Punchback logo. Grant writers help him dream bigger. Satellite programs in neighboring counties, virtual classes streamed into pediatric rehabilitation wings. Whenever reporters ask why he still coaches, free of charge, he answers simply, because the world hits hard enough already. I return to the neighbors who witnessed that hit. Mrs. Delgado, whose trembling testimony in court swayed jurors, now volunteers 3 mornings a week, greeting parents at the center's front desk. Mr. Chen, who once worried property values would plummet from too much publicity, heads the accessibility committee, measuring sidewalk grades with laser precision. Tragedy has a way of clarifying priorities. Inside Punchback, Alejandro signals a break. Marcus backs from the ring to roaring applause. Daniela, tiny, fierce, her spina bifida braces gleaming pink, rolls forward and fist bumps him. Coach, In says I get to try the jab cross next, she squeals. Marcus winks. Aim for the mitt, then the moon, he tells her, repeating Alejandro's mantra. Daniela laughs, unafraid, empowered. I slip outside, inhale warm air spiced with cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. The same sidewalk where my son was punched now feels like reclaimed territory. Blue chalk letters spell hope near the curb. A family cycles past. The father raises 2 fingers in salute. Solidarity born of shared streets and hard lessons. I think of the word legacy. It's tossed around at banquets and commencements, but here it stands tangible. A ring, a set of laws, safer curbs, children who understand self-worth measured not by the legs they stand on, but by the fight they carry in their hearts. Marcus's attack could have closed our doors, driven neighbors inward, cemented suspicion. Instead, it blasted them open. Sheriff Rivera calls occasionally to update us on county-wide metrics. Unlicensed security complaints down 87%. New training protocols praised by disability rights advocates. You all started a movement, he says. We didn't set out only to protect one boy, but sometimes a single fist, answered by a braver one, rings loud enough to change policy. Twilight creeps in, soft as last summer's but no longer menacing. In the gym's open roll-up door, I watch Marcus assist Alejandro in stacking mitts, showing Daniela how to secure her glove straps. When the lights click off, the kids wheel and walk out together, silhouettes framed by pink gold sky. Laughter floats over the sound of crickets. Marcus stops beside me, tilts his head back to meet my gaze. "Dad, guess what Coach told me?" "What's that?" "He said next month I can help teach the beginners class." Pride swells my chest, warm and buoyant. I ruffle his hair. "You'll make a great coach." He grins, the faint scar on his ribcage hidden under a punchback t-shirt. A coach? And maybe a lawyer. I kind of like the courtroom. We head home along the accessible path, wheels humming a steady cadence. The porch lights bloom once more across Wellington Ridge, but tonight they illuminate a community changed, a place where guardianship is earned, where strength defends rather than intimidates, where the most vulnerable lead the charge toward something better. Some injuries never fully fade. I know Marcus still feels phantom echoes when the air turns cold. Yet each time he laces gloves, each time neighbors cheer instead of gossip, those echoes soften beneath the drum of new possibilities. Violence once fractured our quiet suburb. Resolve stitched it stronger than before. And somewhere in the hush, between dusk and dark, a lesson rings clear as mitt against knuckle. Real power isn't a badge you buy or a fist you fling at the weak. Real power is the willingness to stand on 2 feet on wheels in the corner of a ring and say, "Not here, not today." Then, if necessary, to swing back hard enough that justice hears the impact echo all the way to the places where laws are written, curbs are built, and children dream without fear. That's a legacy my son understands. It's one we intend to guard, with gloves on, hearts open, for as long as these streets remember how a single punch tried to break us and forged instead an unbreakable community.